So we're here to talk about marketing in the new era of commerce. Um, I was actually wondering if what we're really talking about is a shift in responsibility. So marketing really just used to be about demand gen. Now you've got discovery, you've got in-product experience, pre-product experience, post-product experience, you've got support experience, you've got growth, you've got strategy. I'm just saying, y'all got a lot to do. I mean, all of their titles include measurement, insight, growth, strategy. At least one of you's got ops. I'm a CEO. You're doing more than me. So that's what we're here to talk about today is, marketing in the new world of commerce. Let's start off like at the team level in the real world. How have your teams changed in just the last 2 years? Anybody want to go first? Somebody's got to.
I can maybe take it. So I think when we talk specifically about commerce, we've seen the funnel really collapse and we've reacted that way with the way that we think about buying specifically, but also the way we think about the consumer journey and how as a brand or set of brands we navigate that consumer journey. So I think there's been a lot of internal shifts and agility that have had to happen in order for us to navigate a very rapidly changing commercial environment.
Yeah, I think for us, the full team, and everyone can probably resonate, got more accountability, responsibility with less control over many of those outcomes. So it's like getting the extra work without the promotion. So there's definitely been a lot of that, but understanding where we can have the most impact, who we need to be working with, because I think really strengthening that collaboration muscle and thinking beyond the silos that we functionally work in has been something everyone's had to adapt to.
My world, the commerce piece has actually helped massively flatten our work structures in not an official way, but just in a practical way, like where we, use that actually to like finance, ops, support, data analytics, like we're all in it together in a way that we never were before because we have such a focused outcome we can drive to, right? We all can measure our collective output with, the KPIs for commerce when it was just a bunch of marketing activity before. So I think it's helping flatten things in a more productive way.
I think we have been making more data driven decisions. So obviously, like then, if the teams have had to like quickly ramp up to have measurement as a key play. We've been also being more consumer first, consumer focused, consumers changing every day. So the teams have also had to ramp up to understand consumer insights, but also react to those insights. So whether you're social listening, whether you're picking up the themes, whether you're engaging with the buzzwords, but you have to do what you have to do to be like, top of mind. And then third, but not the last, is the fact that how you're linking it back to sale. Because I think now pretty much, I think the gentleman before us was talking about QR codes on TVs, but like you can have an exit at every point in the consumer journey. So I think that's how the teams have become more nimble, but also more agile and have had to work across like departments that were not even theirs, work more closely. But lastly, I would just say that even the talent itself, like we have to like relook at talent itself. AI, can they do AI in their sleep almost? Like, can they turn things around faster? Are they curious? Because curiosity is now the big thing. So I'm just saying like that's been just the level of change.
All right, all right. So as marketing becomes more commerce driven, you all work in really complex orgs. Are your teams, I'll just ask it because everybody here they're on your team. Are you guys picking up influence in your orgs? Are you getting the influence and the increased responsibility or just the increased responsibility? Anybody? It's a safe space.
Both, for sure. Yeah. I mean, in a pretty strong upward kind of momentum to it. So it's not, there's the outcomes and the growth of measurable, activity happens. Yeah, the resources are coming, the influence is coming,
it's great
team size, spend, whatever you want to measure it, size or impact with, it's coming right along.
Definitely more questions are coming. Like, I think definitely more slides now need inputs from us rather than they did before. But I think influence in the right parts from a strategic standpoint, that like don't build the strategy and then give us to execute, but get the POV as you build the strategy itself. That's a big change.
I think that's a huge point. Like you just got a bunch of head nods, and I saw a few out there as well. So just that's a big deal. Let's talk a little bit about retail media for half a sec. I'm sure we've all heard of it. Often framed as a win-win. Where does the story break down for your brands, like in practice?
I can maybe take that one. I think it's a good one. It's a tricky one. I think it actually plays into what you just asked and the answer that was just given. Retail media is the same trend that we're seeing across marketing, period, which is it's connecting all these dots that we didn't used to have to connect. Now we do have to connect them. I think the pitfall can be if internally we are not navigating that as well as we can, because the retailers are our customers, I'm their customer. It becomes a much more complex environment. So there's a lot more touch points internally that need to happen for a brand to show up in the right way in a retail, digital or physical retail environment. And it really relies a lot on connectivity internally and connectivity externally. So it's complex, and managing that complexity is critical.
I definitely think the connectivity is really key here. And instead of just focusing on those upper funnel objectives that maybe retail media used to focus on, it is now about, and I know full funnel is overused, but it's really about removing friction. Like you said, they're coming, they can exit at a point, they can enter at any point, and we need to remove those friction points in any part of that journey. And also understand that removing that is a lot of times out of our control, and an out of stock trumps a great campaign any day. So it's not just thinking about building and driving that demand, but it's also about managing, inventory and supply. It's availability.
An out of stock trumps a great campaign any day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I maybe add on that the kind of where win-win becomes probably win-lose is when it's just an ad. Right, you don't have the
when
right.
It's just an act.
Yeah,
yeah.
You're just selling space, and you're not doing the needed pre-work to get the right strategy, placement, context, the alignment of goals. You're just trying to fill space, hit a quota. When it is win-win, it is magical, right? Where you can actually see measurable results, happening, and your advertiser is coming back to you. If you're like, I want that to happen again, right? That was the outcome that we are really looking for, and it's way more than just slapping an ad in some spot.
I was going to ask a question about internal tensions. As commerce has evolved, is the tension changing between marketing and sales, marketing and finance, marketing and ops? You're all nodding your head. I think self-answered the question on all three fronts. But is technology helping, like in terms of interdepartmental transparency at all? Is there anything in that way that's actually, helping to abate some of the always ever-present tension?
Now it's getting interesting. I think when I looked at that question, I definitely think there's tension between marketing and finance, and marketing wanting to go or even marketing and legal, like marketing wanting to go faster and have more flexibility, and finance wanting really clear attribution, and legal wanting to be everything buttoned up and sometimes more risk adverse, etc. But for me, it's a bigger debate between short-term and long-term objectives, and that will kind of influence the tensions in the organization, whether you're focused on short-term or long-term objectives.
Do you spend a lot of time like just networking to? I have a phrase. I'm a CEO, and I use this phrase all the time. I have an agenda with my agenda, right? So with your agenda with your agenda, you know what I mean? Like like what's the question behind the question? I always ask that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Anything on the
I
attention?
think marketing internally has become more important. So I think that's a big part of it. I think the tension, I don't know if it's being resolved with tech, but I think the opportunities are becoming a lot more clear a lot more quickly. So at least some of those tensions are quickly surfaced. And then I think the long and short term debate is has been ever present, but is now more crystallized.
The tensions actually come from, again, if I was to just link it back to what we were talking about earlier, it's very easy to see the full funnel. It is now easy to measure the come-ins and the drop-offs. It's very easy to measure incremental sale versus regular sale, competitive, mapping. You're able to see it all, and you're able to see it as many times as you want to see it. And you have everybody from Nielsen Circana to like different cuts of data. And where it gets complicated is not just internal, but like there is a host of macro changes as well that are currently going on, and all dollars are green. So if all dollars are green, where do you spend it in the most unique way to get that incremental sale, and who raises their hand first? Because again, it is, and how do you bring everybody on the journey? So if I want to grow sales incrementally through TikTok sales, which is now a newer version of ecom pure play, how is supply going to show up? How's finance going to show up? How's my regular commercial team going to show up? How's my marketing team going to show up with content? That becomes like, so I think it is tension in a good way if it drives the business forward. So I'm actually all in for the agenda, behind the agenda.
I'd say most of the tension has actually been released except for legal. I think legal has been the one that's spiked. Yeah, with all the activity, with all the pushing of new technology and becoming more commerce-led and focused and company, that legal is the one that's always it's not a bad tension, but it is the frictional spot.
Yeah, it can be productive. It can be good. So you're in a physical space, Patrick. From a retail perspective, what do digital-first marketers most misunderstand about commerce and how it actually works in like the cement, the four walls, on the ground kind of space?
Plumbing backups, roof leaks. I mean, a kid, but they've never had to deal with a physical space.
Right.
I mean, hiring, just to have a fleet of employees, and if they call in sick, like what do you have to do? Weather outcomes. I actually say the more interesting one, and kind of being a little tongue in cheek, is the impact that a physical store has on their online business. So they're often thinking, hey, I'm opening my first physical or second physical store. I'm just trying to open a new channel. It often will create a halo effect of 20 to 30% additional online orders in the market that they've added the store to.
Right.
So they don't often start with that in mind. And I think the other thing they often miss is the amount of media and just support that a new store needs. You just can't build it and they don't just come. Like, as much as you promote and focus driving traffic to your online channels, you have to do that in the in-store.
Power of a store manager, right? Yeah, 100%.
So I think the finiteness, it is a finite amount of space, a finite amount of labor and resources in the store, and that's very different from online. And that, I love what you said, because we always talk about digital influence in store, especially like in CPG. The bulk of our sales are still happening in store, but I think the new role of retail is to do the opposite and create that excitement and the experience to then drive different occasions online, and to really understand those occasions that are going to be best served between online and offline. And to your point, those shoppers that are doing both are way more incremental and profitable to us as brands.
I'd almost then add to that where it's all of the other omni-channel activities at the store often then will provide them opportunities. So I can have it to now returns. It is the endless aisle. I can ship it to you. I don't have it here today, but I can have it to you from my online distribution right in a couple of days, even maybe for free shipping, whatnot. So the store that becomes more than just, again, a single channel. It's meshing itself into this mix and match journeys, that is omni-channel.
I can commiserate with your comment earlier about the plumbing or the floods or broken locks or somebody forgot the store key. I used to run an online-only business. It was quite successful, and we acquired a large retail chain And not only were we trying to knit things together to be Omni back in the early days of Omni when Omni was cool, but I found myself about 6 months in reading the weather report for every state every morning because I knew that would influence my retail sales more than like anything else.
Just getting your employees to the store when a big weather
100%.
event happens, that's
100%.
something you never had to think about.
Yeah, I agree entirely.
And the planning timelines, the cycle times, very different from digital.
Okay, so metrics, measurement. What has become the most important in a commerce-led world for each of you? And maybe secondarily that, which one do you trust less than maybe you used to?
I think Channan was mentioning earlier, and I would agree that we can really see everything now. And so when we talk about ROI, it's become a very precise conversation.
Sure.
And that's awesome. It also means that other metrics that are critical for long-term brand building, for, consumer sentiment, sometimes can get lost and have to be kind of revived. And so I think, at least in my organization, one of the things I've been sneaking into every conversation is ROI is the most important thing, but every single marketing activity that we do is both about sales and brand building. Everything is bottom of the funnel and top of the funnel. Maybe it indexes one way or another, but we cannot sort of bifurcate those things anymore. We have to think about them holistically, and they really do all matter. And there's certainly, I love the retail physical versus digital conversation because there's such a halo effect, and we can measure it a lot better, but sometimes we have to be a little bit more patient.
I would put forth a lot of just the top level marketing activity metrics have become less important. How many people open the email or click the email or visited the site? You still measure it, but it's far less important. They really have dropped, to a more muted level in the conversation.
I think it kind of speaks to ROAS. I know ROAS is like a dirty word, so we said it. But we've moved from ROAS to incremental sales, and I'm questioning incremental sales too, because like ROAS is measuring intent essentially, but incremental sales should be measuring growth. But I think there's so many variations of that and ways to tell a story around incremental sales that leads to doubt. That it's really about incremental profitability because that takes like the ROI or ROAS into consideration. Like what did that cost to fulfill like the media, etc. So I'm trying to err more on that side. And then new to brand or new to business, however you want to talk about it. Again, that's one that can be played with to tell the story you want to tell. But I'd say new to category because brands grow through category growth, especially in finite environments. So that's really important to look at more holistically.
I was gonna say ROAS actually because that's the same story, but also I think the followers, like there was this entire piece on like how many influencer activities are you doing, how many followers do you have, is that count increasing? I don't think that's a metric anymore, because also you don't know if it's like I was talking to you guys earlier in terms of it's an Omni, from an Omni channel, it's an Omni audience environment now. So you have humans, you have bots, you have like rehumans. So all of this, the metric is now more engagement and like true engagement rather than just numbers of followers.
There's more bots on the web now than humans. Like it crossed over in 2025. Was the official moment of bot activity exceeding humans.
I actually think that's really interesting, and you didn't ask, but I think it's the bot marketing.
Yeah.
Marketing to machines in the world of commerce is rapidly going to become critical for organizations like us to be successful. I heard a very smart person refer to companies that don't get into machine marketing fast enough as logistics companies, because there's not going to be demand from machines who are going to be proxies for consumers' demand. And it scared the shit out of me. But it's true, I think, that as we think about commerce, we have to think about not just consumers purchasing, but bots purchasing, and what that means for all of us.
I couldn't agree more, because I think this is going to be the next roundtable topic, to be honest. It's exactly that. How are machines going to interpret what we want to desire in terms of engagement or impact? So I was actually thinking over the holidays about AI and this topic, and you mentioned brand a second ago, and then so I branched up the brand, and I was trying to figure out, like, over this year, how am I going to measure brand and engagement in the terms of, like, are my customer relationships strengthening or not? Because a relationship implies a few things. One, it's a two-way street. We're getting value from each other. I'm not just monetizing them. They're getting something from me. Two, there's no way any of our customers interact with us the same way or at the same time or in the same mood, right? So they want a relationship on maybe different levels, very hands-off, very hands-on. And three, there is this concept of trust, that there's a respect, especially coming to the customer. And I was wondering, like, I don't have an answer. I've sort of been debating, like, that's not ROAS, that's not ROI. How do I measure the brand respect in a new, both bot and marketplace and direct and retail kind of way? I don't have an answer. It's been noodling in my head.
Can I jump in, and then I'm sure there's some builds. I think for me, it elicits the value of brands in the future.
Yeah.
Because at least in my portfolio, we have brands, and yours too, right? 80% of American households, very trusted brands, and that trust cannot be quickly built. So it's really critical that we continue that. I also think about value creation and how are we creating more value, increased value for our consumers, certainly through product innovation, but also through experiences and how we connect. And so I think that's going to also be really critical for modern marketers.
I'd almost say what it's not. I don't think it's more NPS surveys or CSAT. Like, I'm with you. I think we need to have a way of getting at it, but the way we've been doing it is very superficial, and I think doesn't really look at it holistically at all.
The insights professional in me will say brand love, brand health, brand equity, but
That too.
besides that,
Those would be better.
there's lifetime value, which is very hard to measure, and
I would believe that one. That's
companies have different ways. I also think it's in user-generated content. When people are talking about your products and excited about them and making content and sharing it organically, not being paid, and I think that really shows the strength of a brand and that love for a brand, and can really expand a brand into new occasions and cohorts. So that's a good way.
The only thing I've come up with so far, before I go back to the next question, is, can I create an agent that pulls all of our social media mentions and our customer service inquiries by tone or key point, and say product requests? And can I dump them all into one, I don't know, not sponsored, Zoom/Teams channel, and have that as a zeitgeist somehow? That's like the only thing I've so far.
Create it.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Next year's job. All right. 2 years from now, what will separate brands that adopted well to this new commerce reality from those that simply added more tools and more spend? Any thoughts? We'll hold you to it, because we'll be back here 2 years from now.
So I'm the guy that had operations in the title.
Yep.
So I think it's doing the hard work of the data layers and the data integrations and the warehousing. Like, it's not sexy, it's not fun, it is painful work, but it's so important. And building the right foundation and then the right integration points on top, that's what's, I think, going to make the big unlock, for those companies, that we're talking about here 2 to 3 years from now. Did the not glamorous, in the trench work of stitching together their ad tech, martech stacks, getting their data in a place that can be accessed through AI, through visibility metrics. it's not rocket science work even anymore either. It's just you got to go do it.
2 years from now, brands that have actively been listening to the consumers, building relationships with them, and then probably innovating, in ways that the consumer wanted them to, would have definitely way more stronger relationships and a longer lifetime value. I think the insulation comes from your consumer and the habit that the consumer generates. Having said that, I think the world is going to continue to change as fast as it's changing. So one will have to keep both hats on, from always today a lot of organizations are taking in the complexity while the retailers are taking the leverage. So I think there will be some sort of come to Jesus kind of moment where there'll be consolidation of players, or there's going to be more understanding of upper versus lower funnel media. And I think 2 years from now, definitely this is the time when max conversation, max build up, there's creativity at its complete peak. So as you use all of this and test and learn, play, scale what works, you'll be more insulated versus the brands who don't.
Go ahead.
I think two things: authenticity. There, especially with AI and being able to be everywhere and say everything in a million different ways and voices, there is a tipping point there, and I think many brands are quickly approaching that. So continuing to really stay true, use those for efficiencies and speed, but not to duplicate yourself, because if you're trying to be everything to everyone, you'll be nothing. And then connected to that is courageous in the choices they're making. Again, because it's so focused on full funnel, and even just going back to where we started with marketers and all the accountabilities we now have, it's where are we placing our bets? Yes, we can focus on everything and spread our time very thin and our resources, but what are those one or two that are going to be very outcome led, that have the most influence on those outcomes? And that's where we're doubling down.
Yeah, I think we started the conversation by talking about the funnel collapsing and how that's affecting all of us. And I think in 2 years, we also talked about consumer journey and consumer understanding. I think in 2 years, the brands who have not been very precise about why and when their consumers make a decision, and maybe even how, those brands will really struggle.
I agree entirely, because you have the tools, and you've all said you can see everything now. So if you can't move from being like, generally this is true, to no, on Tuesdays this happens, and on Wednesdays this other thing happens. If you're not in that zone, I agree entirely.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we're the largest producer of bread and baked goods in the world, and in the U.S., bread's a staple. It's in pretty much every home. How do I make sure that someone doesn't say, "Hey Alexa, put bread on the grocery list," and that's private label? So I think there's like a very clear decision moment, people decision moment, machine decision moment, connectivity. I mean, the data foundations are so critical, right? Because we've got to have the right plugins to the right places. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in the next couple of years to maintain relevance.
So we've got just a few minutes left, maybe a bonus question. I started this panel with a semi-joke, which was marketing has now become front and center. I think I'm actually hoping that, I think the previous days gone by where as soon as there was a downturn, marketing got slashed first, because I think collectively this group, we are front and center. And I made the joke that you all have rather expansive titles now, several different departments. Willing to share like a mantra or a life lesson that you personally gets you through the tougher Wednesdays? You just keep something in mind, or somebody you look up to, or something from your grandmother? Any personal keeps you going?
My mantra the last 6 months has been see something, do something. So there's just so much that, as I said, there are no more silos anymore. If I see that can be done better, whether it's a spend, whether it's an efficiency conversation, whether it's where to play, how to win. I've just been trying to take that bit by bit.
I can build because mine's kind of connected. I think we're all in like decision paralysis because there's just so much data, which more data, more opinions, more debates, and then we're waiting for that perfect answer that gives everyone clarity and confidence, and that doesn't exist. So for me, the question that I push back is this safe to try? And if we don't try, is the opportunity cost higher? So it's just reframing a lot of those business conversations.
The power of 1%. So a big believer in marginal gains, that the incrementality, if we all could be 1% better every single day, that stacks up pretty quickly to a pretty big number. So
Power of compounding.
yeah, I mean, so just small marginal changes that, you know, aren't revolutionary, but if you just keep after it relentlessly day after day after day, just small improvements, those do rack up into often a really amazing product or amazing, team.
Those were great. The one I would add is I talk a lot with my team about what we call loyalty to the business, and that's meant to be a decision-making mantra. We mostly know most of the time what's best for the business, but then all these other things get in the way.
Sure.
Influence and people and opinions and feelings, and whenever we're sort of in a position where there's a conflict or, paralysis, loyalty to the business. What does the business need? And we know in our gut what the business needs. And that might change tomorrow and it might change in 2 weeks. But today we know what the business needs. And so just distilling it very simply to that, it's you and the business. What's the decision?
Sounds great. Please give it up to our panelists today. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.